I'd been behind the wheel for what felt like an eternity, at least 2 hours, barreling down routes 98 straight toward Baltimore. My wife, Lily, was in town for a 3-day insurance conference at the Hyatt Hotels. I kept telling myself I was just going to surprise her with a nice dinner, but deep down, I knew the real reason. I had a gnawing suspicion she was cheating on me. That suspicion had been eating at me for months. Guilt, doubt, anger, they churned in my gut so violently I could barely focus on keeping the truck steady. Every time she left for one of these so-called work events over the past 3 months, something felt off. She'd come home late, distant, glued to her phone at all hours, and occasionally, I'd catch a little smirk on her face, one I'd never seen before. She used to be so full of life, the kind of woman whose energy could light up an entire room. But that spark? Gone. Physically, she still had the same stunning figure, the curves that once made me do double takes back when we were teenagers, and that long brown hair that caught the light like polished bronze. Yet, something about her had changed. It was as if a part of her had closed off, locked away behind a look that hinted at secrets I wasn't meant to know. Lily and I had been together for 15 years. We had 2 kids, Emma, 10, and Lucas, 8. We married right after high school, young and reckless, hopelessly in love. But time has a way of wearing things down. Love, if not carefully tended to, can rot from the inside out when one person starts thinking they deserve more than what they have at home. I wasn't going to spend another night wondering. I had to see for myself. Room 310, that's where she was staying. I needed to find out if there was anything left to salvage or if our marriage was already a sinking ship. And if I caught her in the act, at least then I'd know where I stood. No more sleepless nights, no more torturing myself with worst-case scenarios. I pulled into the Hyatt Hotels just past 5 in the evening. The grand revolving doors, the spotless floors, the high-end decor, it all screamed luxury. The kind of place that charges a fortune for parking but doesn't bother charging for honesty. I half expected someone to stop me. But that's the thing about fancy hotels. Walk in with enough confidence, and no one questions you. At the front desk, a young clerk in a crisp uniform greeted me with a polite, professional smile. I introduced myself as Ethan Marshall, handed over my ID, and told him I was here to see my wife, Lily Marshall, attending an insurance conference in room 310. I kept my tone even, my expression practiced. I mentioned that she'd left a key for me. The clerk barely hesitated. He typed a few things into the computer, then smiled and slid a keycard across the counter. Here you go, Mr. Marshall. Enjoy your stay. My heart pounded as I walked toward the elevator. The overhead lights felt too bright. My palms were damp with sweat. I told myself I was ready for whatever I'd find. But that was a lie. The ride to the second floor was short, but it felt longer. I stepped onto the worn red carpet, walked down the hallway, and stopped in front of room 310. Sliding the key into the lock, I heard the soft beep as the light flashed green. I pushed the door open, slowly, carefully. Lily was sitting at the small desk in the corner, flipping through a stack of papers. When she turned and saw me, her eyes went wide. Ethan? You scared me. I forced a grin, keeping my voice light. Figured I'd surprise you. Brought my suit so we could grab dinner. For a split second, something flickered in her expression, guilt. But then she smiled, bright and warm, as if she were genuinely happy to see me. That's so sweet. I wasn't expecting you. She stood, smoothing her blouse as she walked toward me with open arms. I half thought she'd try to block my way, but she didn't. Instead, she kissed me soft and familiar. My stomach twisted. That was the same mouth I'd imagined spitting accusations at if I found out she'd betrayed me. And yet, she looked relieved. Stay the night, she said, her voice light. They gave me a decent room. You can help me unwind after these stuffy seminars. Sure, I said, playing along. Could use a break myself. She kissed me again, her fingers brushing against my shoulders before pulling away. Let me grab a quick shower, then we can figure out dinner, okay? She sounded so natural, so casual, that my doubts started to slip away. Maybe I was being paranoid. Or maybe she was just better at hiding things than I'd realized. She disappeared into the bathroom, humming a tune as the water started running. I kicked off my shoes, taking a slow glance around the room. It looked clean. No extra suitcases. No obvious signs of a second guest. I exhaled. Maybe I was wrong. But I couldn't shake the feeling. I hadn't driven 2 hours for nothing. On the dresser, her toiletry bag sat open. I wandered over, telling myself I was just looking for aspirin. But we both knew that was a lie. I was searching for proof. I unzipped the bag and sifted through its contents, makeup, hairpins, a small comb. Nothing out of the ordinary. But I wasn't done looking yet. Then I saw them. A pack of 6 protective films. My blood ran cold. After Lucas was born, Lily started taking birth control pills, but they messed with her system. So I got a vasectomy. Protection was never a concern again. And yet, there they were. I stared, my hands trembling. There was only one possible reason for her to have these in her bag. She was seeing someone else. She was sleeping with him. And just like that, my trust was shattered beyond repair. What does a betrayed husband do in that moment? Some would demand answers. Others would explode in rage. Some might walk away without a word. Me? I saw red. I dug deeper into her bag and found a safety pin. With numb fingers, I poked tiny holes in each protective film. Quick, deliberate punctures straight through the center before carefully placing them back where they were. Was it rational? Probably not. But in that moment, it felt like the quiet revenge I needed. If she planned to use them with her lover, then maybe she'd face the consequences. I slipped the pin into my pocket and reached for my phone. It rested on the side table, the screen dark. I dialed Dylan, my closest friend, a guy who'd bury a body for me if I asked. Hey, I said in a low voice. I need a favor. Call me in an hour. Make up an emergency I can't ignore. A burst pipe at the school, something urgent that'll drag me back home. Dylan didn't ask questions. He just agreed. By the time Lily finished her shower, my plan was already in motion. I'd find a reason to leave before bedtime, give myself space to think, figure out my next move. She stepped out of the bathroom, hair damp, wrapped in a soft towel. Her eyes locked onto mine, a sultry smile curling her lips. Hey, handsome. You look tense. I forced out a weak chuckle. The drive wore me out. She slid onto the bed beside me, her hand resting on my thigh. Let me make it better. She leaned in, her warm skin brushing against mine, her breath mixing with the air between us. A stronger man might have pushed her away. But instead, I let it happen. Anger and betrayal are powerful fuels. We were intimate, but the entire time, my mind screamed in protest. Every sigh, every whisper, every touch felt tainted. I was searching for a sign, some slip-up, some indication that she was thinking of someone else. But she played her part well, acting as if nothing had changed. As if this was real. Afterward, we got dressed and headed downstairs to the hotel restaurant. Lily was in a good mood, ordering a small filet mignon and a glass of rose. I went for a heavy steak and whiskey, hoping to drown the storm in my gut. So, I said, keeping my voice steady, you enjoying the conference? She shrugged. It's all right. Insurance seminars are dull, but they're necessary. Sometimes I wonder why you never ask about them. Her words dripped with subtle accusation. She was implying I didn't care about her work. Funny, considering how invested I suddenly was. We talked about the kids, the mortgage, the usual mundane details. But the tension in my shoulders never eased. Then, right on cue, my phone rang. I stepped away from the table and answered. Hey, Dylan. Yeah? A burst pipe in the school basement? I made sure my voice carried the right amount of concern. Damn. All right. I'll head back now. I gave it a few seconds, just enough to make it seem real, then hung up and returned to the table. Lily looked up at me, half annoyed, half smirking. Something wrong. I let out a sigh. Yeah, plumbing issues at the school. I'm the only one who can fix it. She feigned disappointment. Really? Tonight? Ethan, come on. We just got here. I know. Believe me, I don't want to bail, I said, forcing a reluctant frown. But if I don't, they'll have to cancel classes tomorrow. You know how important that is. She sighed, pushing her plate away. Fine. Go be the hero, plumber. She didn't argue, didn't push back. That told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't upset about me leaving. She was relieved, probably already thinking about calling him, breaking out those freshly perforated protective films. We took the elevator back up. As the doors slid open, another guest stepped out, a tall man with an easy confidence about him. He smiled at Lily like they were old friends. Lily. Then, he turned to me, extending a hand. You must be Ethan. I'm Ryan Cooper. I work with your wife. I studied his face. Late 30s, perfectly styled hair, a sharp jawline, an expensive watch. He carried himself like the world owed him something. But the real giveaway was in Lily's eyes. The flicker of something unspoken. This wasn't just a coworker. This was the man who held my wife's secrets. Ryan, I said, shaking his hand with forced politeness. Nice to meet you. He nodded and strode down the hall, disappearing around the corner. My nostrils flared. my mind filled with violent fantasies, slamming him against the wall, squeezing the life out of him. But I had to be patient. I walked Lily back to her room, said goodbye, and promised to call in the morning. Her expression was a mix of relief and something else. Maybe fear, maybe excitement. I left, climbed into my truck, and started the long drive home. As the city lights faded behind me, one question echoed in my mind. Did I have the strength to see this through? The woman I once loved had turned into a deceitful liar, and the only evidence I had to prove it was the rubber. Without solid proof, no one would believe my claims of infidelity. I needed something concrete, something undeniable, to show she was playing me for a fool. 2 days later, Lily walked back through the door, acting all cheerful, almost smug, talking about how tiring the conference had been. She never once brought up Ryan or apologized for anything. She kissed me on the cheek quickly, then spent the rest of the evening acting like everything was fine while she fussed around the kitchen. I had to keep my cool, but inside, I was seething with rage. That Saturday, Lily's company, Liberty Insurance, hosted their annual family picnic, an event they held every summer. They rented out a big park, filled with carnival rides, cotton candy, balloons, and everything you'd expect. Emma and Lucas were both thrilled to go. As for me, I dreaded it. The thought of being around Lily's colleagues and seeing Ryan strut around made my stomach churn. But I forced myself to smile for the kids. We loaded up the car and drove to the park. Lily was dressed in a tight V-neck blouse and skinny jeans that showed off her figure. I could tell she'd spent extra time getting ready, flipping her hair in the mirror and adding lip gloss with a little too much flair. "You look nice," I told her, keeping it simple. "Thanks," she said, tossing her hair over her shoulder. Could have used a compliment without sounding so stiff, though. I decided to let it slide. We signed in at the welcome booth and grabbed some free tote bags. Immediately, Lily was surrounded by a group of coworkers, all of them laughing a little too loudly at their jokes, while I stood off to the side with the kids. I spotted Ryan wandering around, shaking hands and looking every bit the charming opportunist. Before long, a woman I didn't recognize approached me. She introduced herself as Megan Cooper, tall, with auburn hair and blue eyes that sparkled with intelligence. She wore a white blouse and slacks that fit her well. "Hey," she said softly. "You're Lily's husband, right?" "Ethan Marshall." "I am," I replied, studying her expression. "And you are?" "Megan Cooper, Ryan's wife." I blinked. Ryan's wife. There she was, standing right in front of me, the wife of the man I suspected was having an affair with Lily. I tried not to stare. She was stunning, exuding the kind of confidence that made heads turn wherever she went. We chatted briefly about the weather and the picnic turnout. But as we moved away from the main crowd, she lowered her voice. "Look, I know about Lily and Ryan. I've known for a couple of months." I froze, my stomach sinking. "You knew?" She nodded quickly, her eyes darting over my shoulder. "I've tried everything to get Ryan to stop, but when I confront him, he denies it. I even hired a private investigator." Her words hit me like a shock of electricity. "Then you must have photos," I said. She gave me a grim smile. "I do. Enough to make a solid case for a divorce." She nodded again. "My lawyers asked me to gather statements, maybe even from Lily, though she seems way too involved. But yeah, I have what I need." I felt a mix of relief and nausea. Relieved because I wasn't crazy. Lily really was cheating on me. Sick, because it meant our marriage was falling apart. Megan then asked if I'd be willing to share any evidence, resources, or testimonies that could help both of us if we ended up divorcing. Without hesitation, I agreed. She suggested we meet the next day at her house, 26 Hemlock Avenue, Crestmont, while Ryan would be out golfing. We exchanged contact details, then slipped back into the crowd like nothing had happened. Lily was still entertaining her coworkers, laughing theatrically whenever Ryan made a joke. Ryan, on the other hand, kept his distance from Megan, who wore a calm, neutral expression. The tension in the air was thick. The next morning, I told Lily I had some errands to run. She barely looked up, saying she was going shopping with a friend. Perfect. I dropped the kids off at my parents' and drove across town to Hemlock Avenue. The street was lined with charming homes, each with neat lawns and flower beds. Megan's place was at the end of the cul-de-sac, surrounded by rose bushes and a tidy porch. She opened the door wearing jeans and a sweater, her hair tied back in a casual ponytail. "Morning, Ethan," she greeted me with a tired smile, stepping aside to let me in. The house had a cozy feel, decorated with warm tones and soft lighting. She led me to her den, where a computer monitor sat on a small table. The screen showed a cheap motel room with a single bed, empty at the moment. Megan gestured for me to sit. I have a private investigator on retainer, she explained. He set up hidden cameras. Ryan's patterns are consistent. He books that room every time he goes golfing. Her voice cracked on the last word. She offered me a soda, which I took, swallowing against the dryness in my throat. Wait, you're telling me they're meeting today? I asked, the question hanging in the air. Likely, Megan responded. Ryan thinks I've stopped checking up on him. We passed the time in tense conversation, both of us on edge. Megan then pulled out an accordion folder, packed to the brim with photos. There were pictures of Lily and Ryan entering motels, leaving restaurants, and even one of them kissing in a parking garage. She had audio recordings, phone logs, everything we needed to bury them. Looking at the evidence twisted my gut, but a part of me felt thankful. For months, I'd been tormented by the feeling something was off, but without proof, I couldn't be sure. Now, I had it, and it hit me like a hammer. Finally, the screen flickered to life. The motel door creaked open, and in walked Ryan, wearing a golf polo. Right behind him was Lily, her hair pinned up, her blouse barely fastened. They kissed passionately, like a couple of teenagers, ripping at each other's clothes. In a matter of seconds, they were both naked. The images were disturbingly clear. My hands clenched into fists. The woman I'd loved for half my life was there, with a man I barely knew, in a motel room, carrying on like nothing mattered. I couldn't watch any more after about 2 minutes. I've seen enough, I muttered. Megan's face was ashen. Me too. She hit the button to kill the feed. I'll have the PI make a DVD, she said quietly. I nodded, forcing my voice to stay calm. Thank you. We spent the next hour putting together a plan. Megan would share her evidence, and I'd share mine. We both wanted divorces that would leave Lily and Ryan with nothing but regret. If they fought back, we'd have the ammunition we needed. When the conversation wound down, Megan offered to show me her koi ponds in the backyard, a hobby she loved. Grateful for the distraction, I followed her outside. Her backyard was a work of art, stone paths, waterfalls, and 3 different ponds filled with koi of every color, gliding peacefully beneath the water. It felt surreal to stand there, talking about fish while my world fell apart. But for a moment, it was oddly peaceful. Megan pointed out the pumps and filtration systems, and I mentioned my background in plumbing. For the first time that day, I felt myself relax. Eventually, she walked me to the door. I'm sorry this is happening, she said softly, her hand resting on the doorframe. But at least we're not alone, right? I nodded. We'll handle it. In the weeks that followed, I learned Lily's routine in painful detail. Whenever I heard the sound of water running, I'd check her toiletry bag. Each time, I found fresh rubber. I kept a safety pin nearby, poking holes in them, imagining the look on her face if she ever found out. What was the strangest part? She acted as if everything was normal. The more I caught her, the more arrogant she became. She accused me of not appreciating her enough, of being too small-minded. I started wondering if she actually enjoyed living this double life. By day, she was the loving family woman. By night, she was Ryan's mistress whenever she could sneak away. One Friday evening, after the kids had gone to bed, I confronted her in the living room. Lily, we need to talk, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. About your job, I added. She was half watching some reality show, the TV blaring in the background, with no attempt to mute it. We've already talked about it, she replied, barely looking up. What's your problem? I asked. I want you to quit Liberty Insurance, I said. I can't stand the environment. Or Ryan Cooper. He's no good for you. She gave me a condescending glance, a derisive snort escaping her. You're obsessed. Ryan's just a coworker. I'm not quitting my job just because you're insecure. It's not insecurity, I said, frustration boiling over. I see the way you act around him. She stood up, dramatically switching off the TV. Ethan, you need to grow up. Stop blaming me for your jealousy. Her voice dripped with scorn. I'm not discussing this again. I'm tired of your demands. She brushed past me and headed upstairs, leaving me standing there, simmering in my anger. Meanwhile, Megan and I had fallen into a pattern of exchanging updates. My kids had started calling her the koi lady, always excited to visit her and see the fish. Lily never seemed to connect the dots. On nights when Lily and Ryan met up, the kids and I would go to Megan's, where we'd enjoy a calm evening or just watch movies. Megan filed for divorce first. Ryan fought it, but the evidence was overwhelming. Photos, recorded phone calls, even footage from the motel room. Furious, Ryan tried to drown her in legal threats, accusing her of invading his privacy. But Megan's lawyer tore him apart. As for Lily, she either didn't notice or thought she was untouchable. She never questioned my late nights or asked what I was really doing. Maybe guilt kept her quiet, or maybe she just didn't care. Then one night, she dropped a bombshell. Sitting at the kitchen table with a glass of wine, she swirled it lazily before speaking. "I've been stressed," she said, her tone casual. "I'm taking some time off. Going to visit my sister Hannah for a few days, maybe a week." She took a sip. "Thought you'd appreciate the break. You've been so moody lately." My jaw clenched. She sounded so condescending, like she was doing me a favor. "When are you leaving?" I asked, my voice tight. "Ryanoro morning," she replied. "Hannah has space." "I need to clear my head," she said, giving me a pointed look, daring me to argue. I didn't. Instead, I gritted my teeth, forcing a casual, have fun. But inside, my mind was spinning with possible reasons for her sudden sisterly getaway. Something told me it wasn't just for relaxation. I started digging. Lily had receipts stashed in her purse from a family planning center. One glance was all it took for my worst suspicions to skyrocket. Could she be planning an abortion? The holes I'd poked in her condoms. Did that mean she was pregnant? Pregnant with Ryan's child? I had to find out. The next day, I drove straight to the clinic, certain she might have scheduled the procedure there. Most places turned me away, but the family planning center allowed me to sign a consent form if I could prove I was the spouse. I put on my best clueless but helpful act, walking in like I belonged. "I'm just here to sign that form, so we're all on the same page, right?" The receptionist checked her records, then slid a file over. I signed it without hesitation. Friday, 11 a.m. That was the date of the appointment. The blood in my veins turned to ice as the truth hit me. She was pregnant, probably with Ryan's child, and all because of the sabotage I'd done. My heart hammered with a twisted mix of shock, anger, regret, and a dark sense of triumph. She hadn't just cheated. She'd gotten pregnant and was now planning to erase all evidence of it. I left the clinic with a new sense of purpose. This wouldn't end quietly. She wanted to play games? Fine. I drove 3 hours to Hannah's house, knowing Lily had just arrived the night before. Hannah was married to Mark, an ex-construction foreman who was big enough to bench press me. The tension in the air was palpable the moment I stepped inside. Lily shot me a cold glare, her arms crossed. "What are you doing here?" she demanded. I gave a tight smile. "Thought I'd visit. The kids are at my parents' place. Figured I'd grab a few days off since you're on vacation too." Hannah shot a nervous glance at Mark, who forced a grin. "Sure, more the merrier," he muttered. Lily's eyes narrowed, her jaw set. "I didn't invite you." I shrugged. "I'm here anyway." The silence between us grew heavy. Mark cleared his throat. "How about we go fishing tomorrow, Ethan? My buddy Tyler has a boat. We can get out on the water, crack a few beers, let the ladies relax." I pretended to consider it. Sounds fun. But the next morning, I stood firm. I refused to go. Arms crossed, I blocked the passenger door. Mark turned red in the face, tried to argue, but I brushed him off. He and Tyler eventually left without me, both of them fuming. Inside, Hannah started making phone calls, her voice low and urgent. Lily snapped at me. "Go do something else, Ethan. We have errands." I took my time. I drank coffee in the kitchen, ignoring their attempts to shoo me away. As soon as Lily wandered out of sight, I shut off her phone, ignoring the repeated call-waiting beeps from Mark. Hannah muttered curses into her own phone, probably trying to reschedule Lily's procedure or warn them that we were running late. I blocked every attempt they made to slip away. By the time Mark returned, it was already mid-afternoon. He looked exasperated, like he'd been shouting into a dead phone all day. Hannah tore into him, furious. Lily hovered in the background, silent, her expression flickering between frustration and raw anger. That evening, after supper, I cornered Lily in Hannah's kitchen. The overhead light cast sharp shadows on her face. "Lily," I said calmly, "you're done working for Liberty Insurance. Either quit, or I'm filing for divorce." She stared at me, rage twisting her features. "Shut up. I'm sick of hearing this." "I'm not quitting," she shot back. "You can't bully me into that." I took a deep breath, then pulled out the manila folder I'd brought with me. I slid the divorce papers across the kitchen table. "Sign them, or don't. But if you refuse, I'll do it on my own." She glanced at the papers, her jaw dropping in disbelief. Then she sneered, "You can't divorce me for not quitting my job. That's not grounds for anything." "Adultery is," I said softly, pulling out a stack of photos and fanning them out on the table. There was Lily, in Ryan's arms, exiting motels, half-dressed, her face drained of color. She snapped, "You bastard. You've been spying on me." She lunged for the photos, but I grabbed her wrist, stopping her. "How else was I supposed to get the truth? You've made a fool of me." Her lips quivered. "You had no right to do this. It's sick. You set me up, like some twisted pervert." Footsteps pounded from behind. Hannah and Mark rushed in. Hannah gasped when she saw the photos. Lily was trembling with fury, her eyes flicking from the pictures to me. Then my phone buzzed. It was my dad, telling me he'd arrived with a truckload of Lily's things. "All your stuff from the house," he said. I ended the call. Lily glared at me, tears welling in her eyes. "What did you do?" she demanded. I leaned in close, my voice cold as ice. "I changed the locks. Took your stuff. If you need anything else, just send me a list." Lily looked utterly stunned. Hannah tried to defend her sister, but I cut her off. "I've taken half the money from our accounts. It's in an envelope. That's yours. I also signed over the title to your car. That's yours too." I paused, then added, "As for the kids, you'll see them once a week, maybe overnight once a month. But you'll need to sign a notarized statement about your affair first." Lily sputtered, completely thrown off. "What are you talking about? You can't." I dropped the final bomb. "I know you're pregnant. Friday, 11 a.m., Family Planning Center. Does that ring a bell?" Her scream tore through the kitchen. "You had no right," she cried. I calmly pulled the safety pin from my pocket, placed it on the table. "I've been poking holes in your condoms for 2 months, Lily. You went through nearly 50 of them in just 2 weeks. Now, you're pregnant, probably with Ryan's child, or you were. But you're planning to take care of that on Friday, right?" She broke down, tears streaming down her face. "You're insane." I stared at her with grim determination. "You started this, not me." Mark looked horrified, his face pale. Hannah stood beside Lily, wrapping her arms around her sister. The two of them clung to each other, sobbing, as if I had committed some unforgivable sin. I turned and walked out, ignoring Lily's cries. Dad was waiting outside, the truck engine idling. We carried boxes of Lily's things, her personal items, onto Hannah's porch. The whole time, I felt oddly calm. This was it. The end. In the weeks that followed, Liberty Insurance fired both Lily and Ryan. The office gossip spread like wildfire, especially after Ryan's wife, Megan, threatened legal action. Lily refused to sign any affidavits, but it didn't matter. The evidence of the affair was damning. She moved in with Hannah permanently. I heard rumors that Ryan was covering her living expenses, possibly out of guilt, or maybe because he felt responsible for the child she was carrying. I didn't care. Megan finalized her divorce from Ryan quickly. She got nearly everything: the house, investments, alimony. Ryan fought it, but his legal team didn't stand a chance. My own divorce from Lily wrapped up 4 months later. She didn't fight it. She must have realized it was pointless. She packed up and disappeared with Ryan, who had found a new job in Omaha. Fine by me. I had the kids, who didn't miss her as much as I expected. They'd always sensed her distance, and her arrogance had started to rub off on them too. Then Ryan vanished. Disappeared without telling Lily. Maybe he realized his life was a mess, or maybe his past had caught up with him. A rumor started circulating that he got mugged outside a bar, beaten badly, with multiple broken ribs and losing a testicle in the process. Karma, some said. Others claimed it was just random street violence. Whatever the reason, Lily found herself abandoned. She ended up back at Hannah's, her life in tatters. During the same time, Megan and I spent more time together. We were cautious. Neither of us was rushing into anything romantic, still carrying the weight of past heartbreaks. But we enjoyed each other's company. My kids adored her, and she shared her love of koi with them. We took short road trips, visited aquariums, and turned lazy Sundays into afternoons spent feeding the fish. 3 months later, we were talking about marriage. We'd both been through storms, and now we were finding unexpected peace in each other's arms. Megan sold her old business and used the money to buy a beautiful 6-bedroom villa, complete with a pool big enough for the kids to cannonball into all summer long. She also revealed a surprise. She had tracked down a nearly identical Jaguar XK140, just like the one I'd been forced to sell years ago. My ex had made me part with it, but Megan had managed to find one and restore it. The day I saw it, bright and sleek, I felt something thaw in my chest. A happiness that had been stolen from me was finally returning. As for Lily, the last I heard, she was holed up in a cramped attic bedroom at Hannah's place. Both sisters struggled financially. Hannah's marriage to Mark fell apart when he took a job on the Alaskan pipeline and mailed her divorce papers, severing all ties. Now Lily and Hannah were living together, both abandoned by the men they'd tried to control and manipulate. I still heard occasional stories about them, how they fought, blamed each other, and rehashed the past. Me? I slept well at night. My revenge wasn't just about exposing Lily's hypocrisy. It was about sabotaging her life, stripping her of every comfort she'd grown arrogant about. She ended up with no career, no stable relationship, and no easy money. She had to face the consequences of the mess she'd made. Maybe she went through with the procedure, maybe not. I never asked. That was her problem now. Megan and I were building something real, something we could finally enjoy without the ghosts of the past hanging over us. We were healing, together. My kids adjusted quickly, warming to her gentle nature, her cheerful spirit, and the peaceful atmosphere she created. No more secrets, no more lies, no more arrogance filling the air. Months later, Lily reached out, desperate to reconnect with our children. She left a voicemail apologizing, but I wasn't sure what to feel. When I returned her call, she begged to see the kids. I told her she needed to sign an admission of guilt before we'd even talk about supervised visits. Her pleas quickly turned into curses as she tried to downplay her actions. After her rant, I ended the call and blocked her number permanently. Megan and I married in a small, joyful winter ceremony, with our kids by our side, celebrating afterward by feeding koi under the moonlight. We settled into our new villa, enjoying family dinners and planning future trips to Japan to visit koi farms. Our lives had transformed into a harmonious blend of love and stability, a complete contrast to the chaos of the past.